Hello and welcome to the Car Care Nut channel. In today's video, we're going to be going over some things you should never do to your Toyota hybrid. Through my long career as a Toyota Master Diagnostic Technician and a hybrid specialist, these are some things that people do to their cars without knowing the harm or the problems they could cause. In this video, we're not only going to say what not to do, but we're going to say why you shouldn't do that. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some of my other videos. If you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. And without further ado, let's dig right into it. Number 1. Welcome to the back seat of a Toyota hybrid. So this is the place where our kids sit, groceries, giant cases of water, and occasionally a bag or two of ice. Ladies and gentlemen, you should never spill water or large amount of water over the back seat. And I could explain to you why, but I'd rather show you why. So, let me show you. Oops, wrong button. Much better. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the hybrid battery, the high voltage hybrid battery. If you spill water over the back seat, enough quantity of water, or especially the common one that we've seen, is people forget a bag of ice in a hot summer day. That melts, that creates a lot of water that penetrates the seat, goes underneath it into the battery. Folks, these batteries are not waterproof, water resistance. Yes, they do have covers, but these covers are mainly for contact, not really for water intrusion. Water could get inside of these things if you spill enough water. If you spill a little bit, it's probably gonna be stopped by the seat cushion, but you spill enough water, guess what? It's gonna go inside and you're not gonna have problems right away because the water will make its way underneath the battery and it's gonna sit there. But then as it sits, as things start corroding, the problems start. So folks, now you know, don't spill large amounts of water on the back seat. And if you do, look, accidents happen. If you do, you gotta contact a hybrid specialist. They gotta take a look, make sure there's no water that made it inside the battery or around it. And if there is, it needs to be dried as soon as possible to avoid future problems. Now, one advice on this as well, it is helpful to know where is the location of your hybrid battery in your Toyota hybrid. Not because you're going to work on it, not because I actually advise you to go around it, because it could be dangerous, but it is good to know so you can avoid water spills over these batteries. If you're not sure where your Toyota hybrid battery is, you're welcome to leave a comment of your year and model Toyota hybrid, and I'll let you know where it is. Number 2, refuel your hybrid within 30 minutes of opening the fuel door. And people will wonder, wait a minute, how could I open the fuel door and then wait more than 30 minutes to refill? I mean, I'm just going to open it, come fill it up, and we're done. Well, here's a scenario where this would happen. You're on a road trip, you pull over a gas station, the kids are screaming and we're very tired, we need to run to the restroom. You open the fuel door and then you decide, no, let me go in the rest area first, eat, there's a little nice restaurant there in the middle of nowhere, let's go have a meal. And guess what? You forgot your fuel door open. You stayed there, you had your meal, life is good, you come back to fill up the car. Guess what's going to happen? You already passed the 30 minutes. You're going to put the pump, turn it on, and you're going to be greeted by a gasoline shower because the car will just overflow all over you and you're going to be, what just happened that ruined my road trip? Folks, here's why that happens. Did you notice that most hybrids, they don't have a manual release lever for the fuel door. They have a button. And then when you push that button, it takes it a second or two to open the door. Well, the reason for that has to do with the overly complicated evaporative emission system. A very complicated system which I will make very short in a matter of seconds for you. Gasoline creates vapors. Vapors harm the environment. All cars made after 1996, OBD2 compliant in the United States, have a system called the evaporative emission system that captures these vapors in a little fancy device called a charcoal canister. Then when the engine is running, it's going to send those vapors to get burned with the engine, and life is good. Now we don't have fumes all over the place like we did before 1996. Hybrids, because the engine doesn't run all the time, there's not enough demand for these vapors to be burned. So that little charcoal canister, the little container that holds the vapor, it doesn't have enough room to keep those vapors longer because the engine is not running all the time. So what they had to do is separate the fuel tank from that little container. There's a small valve that seals the fuel tank that is not available in other non-hybrid Toyotas. So the reason you need to do your refueling within 30 minutes is because that valve opens. That's why there's a delay when you push the button in the door, because that valve needs to open, allowing the fuel to push the vapor into the canister in a very complicated fashion, which we're not going to bore you with that. But folks, you do not want to forget this door open over 30 minutes because seriously, the gas will just cover you. It's going to overflow immediately. It's going to make a mess. By the way, there is a warning inside the door telling you just that. But I'm with you. Most people don't notice. We just fill up the car, be on our way. If that does happen to you and you did leave it for 30 minutes, push the button again. The valve is open again, and now you're ready to refuel. Number 3, don't use your B mode all day long. Folks will ask, well, what is B mode? Like, I've never heard this. I own a Toyota Hybrid. I don't know what that is. Well, I have a video detailing this in details, how it works and what it is. But let me summarize it for this one. So, your average automatic transmission, conventional, non-hybrid, after you get past the D or drive, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's used for going down a hill. You can downshift the car, and you'll use engine braking to slow down the car so you wouldn't fade your brakes. Well, in hybrids, that was a problem because there's no physical gears to do that, so they used B mode. B mode could either be a shift position in some of the older models. In the newer models, it simulates a manual transmission or a sequential automatic transmission where you have a plus and minus, you can shift through gears. Folks, there are no gears in hybrids. It's all computer software doing this. It is essentially the same as B mode or brake mode, that's what the B stands for, but it gives you varied levels of it when you go plus and minus on your transmission. So use B mode when needed, when you're going down a hill on highway speeds and you really feel like you're going to fade your brakes, then use it absolutely. That's its intended purpose. But I see people driving in B mode all day long. That is unnecessary stress on the hybrid system. All that's going on is there's no engine braking. There's no such thing. A hybrid system will utilize one of the motors to rev up the engine artificially. The engine is not running. It's just going to use it as dead weight. Well, you have this engine revving so high all day long. It's not like a manual transmission when you downshift, or even an automatic transmission when you physically downshift a gear. This is completely different. So don't be using that mode all day long because you're going to stress that engine. You're going to stress the hybrid system unnecessarily. Use it for its intended purpose and you would not have any issues with it. Number 4, don't overfill your Toyota hybrid engine with oil. Now that goes for every gasoline engine, of course, don't overfill them, but hybrids seem to be affected so much when you overfill them with oil. That oil, even by a little bit, tends to end up in the intake manifold. And the reason for that is the way the hybrid engine starts. In a conventional non-hybrid, you got a little starter. On a good day with a perfect battery, that starter will spin the engine at 200, 300 RPM on a good day. On hybrids, because the mighty powerful hybrid motor turns this engine, it's going to spin it at idle speed. So it's going to immediately spin it at 800 to 1200 RPM. From 0 to that, it has instant torque and it spins it that fast. So that sudden spinning from the engine is not moving to all of a sudden going to 800, 1200 RPM. That tends to have an effect of pulling oil through the PCV system into the intake. Now, normally that does not happen, but when you overfill these engines, there's a tendency of that happening. And this is not something that happens once, it happens over time, and the more you leave this car overfilled, the more it's going to do that. When that oil ends up in the intake, you're going to get cold start problem, misfires, all kinds of just clogging of everything, and all the problems start from something as simple as slightly overfilled engines. So I want you guys to think of this. I'd rather you slightly underfill these engines on Toyota hybrids than definitely overfill them. And the common theme that I see is not people out of neglect or not caring they overfill these engines. It's because most people will change their oil, add oil when it's cold, the engine is cold. Let's say you're doing this yourself in your garage, car sat overnight, you woke up that one Saturday morning, you're doing your oil change yourself, which I highly encourage you to, but then you drain the oil, you put new oil, you put the capacity, you pull the dipstick, it's not full. And it's like, okay, what happened? That's of course after you started the car and primed the oil filter, it's not to full mark. Well, people keep adding oil until it's to full. But remember, your engine is cold. The oil you're adding is also cold. When you start this engine and start driving, that oil is going to warm up. Well, what happens to fluid when it warms up? It expands. So now, all of a sudden, your oil level is very high. Folks, you never want to correct your oil level when the engine is cold, because you're gonna get an incorrect level. Engines, they don't run all the time when they're cold. They run all the time when they're hot. So you want to do your oil change and actually leave the oil level halfway on the dipstick between the two dots, as you can see in this picture. That way, that's an estimation. When your engine is fully warmed up, Toyota wants you to drive the car to its complete warm up, shut it off for 5 minutes, then check the oil level. That's the official procedure. The 5-minute wait, you can probably cut that to 1 minute and still get a pretty accurate reading, but it is essential that when you add oil to these engines and they're cold, that you let it halfway. That way, when the engine is warmed up and that oil is nice and hot, we're not overfilled, because that's how you start accumulating oil in the intake, and now we have problem. One note about this seems to affect the semi-older hybrids. The newer ones, like this, the newest generation of hybrids, they seem to have made a better PCV system. It has an oil separator where it takes care of that issue or lessens it, but push the envelope here with overfilling your oil, and that fancy oil separator is not going to do much, and you're going to end up with oil in the intake, and that's not good. Number 5. Are you still watching there? Don't jump start another car from your hybrid. Now, the reason for that is hybrids don't exactly have an alternator. They have a very fancy DC to DC converter that takes that very high voltage from the high voltage battery and steps it down to 12 volt, 14 volts to charge your small little battery, the 12 volt battery. Well, that is not exactly designed to, say, jumpstart a 55 Chevy. So don't go being the good Samaritan with your hybrid and offering to use jumper cables to jumpstart another car. And my favorite one is that I hear and see, and this comes from my viewers as well. I made sure that the engine is running and it's revving up. Folks, this does nothing. This is true with regular gasoline engines, with regular alternators. You know, you raise the RPM, alternator spins faster, and it's able to carry that load. In hybrids, there is no such thing. There is no alternator. All that is going on is there's a little device that is basically a small, very small charger charging the 12-volt battery. That 12-volt battery is not rated to have a starter in its circuit. Starters cause the biggest draw on any car's electrical system. When there's no starter, we don't need that huge battery. That's why most hybrids, they have a tiny little battery, and that's about it. That's all they need. That's why they're always dying and dying, and people complain, why are they so small? What's going on here? Folks, that's just the way it is with these things. You do not want to jumpstart another car from your hybrid. The only exception is if you are jumpstarting another Toyota hybrid, then it's fine, because all that battery does is power up a few computers, turn on a few relays to power up the hybrid system, and then it takes over from there. So you can, yes, you can jump another Toyota hybrid from this, but don't use your Toyota hybrid to jumpstart a conventional gasoline engine car with a starter, because you're going to cause enormous strain on the DC to DC converter, and that is part of a very, very expensive part called the hybrid inverter with converter assembly. You do not want to damage that, because that's going to be a very bad day for you, because these things are very expensive, and the last thing you want to do is damage your car because you're trying to be a good Samaritan to somebody else. And as a bonus for you for sticking this long for this video, which I really appreciate, let me show you how you actually can jumpstart your own hybrid, not give jump starts to other people. Now, most hybrids, except 2016 and up, 4th generation Prius, they have their batteries all the way in the back. That's just the way they are. That's by design, because you have a new component that takes more space. In the new Prius, the 4th generation Prius, they made space and they were able to put the battery under the hood. But everything else, battery is in the back, either in the trunk or in the hatch area, or in the case of this one, in the hatch area as well. If you want to jumpstart a hybrid, there is a terminal in the fuse block under the hood. You basically pop that little red cover, terminal is right there, that's your positive. And these two studs and nuts, these are for the strut. This is where you want to connect your negative terminal. That is the way to jumpstart these cars. However, do not ever use those points to jumpstart another Toyota hybrid. Like I said, you can help another Toyota hybrid owner by giving them a jump start, but never use these. Always go at the battery. But if you're jump starting your own car, you're welcome to use those points. They are there because most of these batteries are somewhat covered up and they're not easily accessible in some models. So that's why they put these jump points for ease. Now you know. And one last thing before I let you go there. Never jumpstart your hybrid backwards. Now, duh, this sounds very obvious, but trust me, when it's 15 degrees outside and your battery died and you have kids screaming in the car and it's very cold and you really gotta go, that's the perfect time, that's the perfect storm to get you to not notice the red and the black and flip them. Happens to everybody, it's an accident, but make sure you pay extra attention, because with hybrids, jump started backwards and we have problems. Serious ones. Just letting you know. So there you have it, folks. I hope your Toyota hybrid lasts you a very long time and you have no issues with them, because they're awesome cars, they're very reliable, and now you know a few things that you should not do to them. I hope this video was helpful and informative for you. I hope you learned something new. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, check out some of my other videos. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have a wonderful day.